I'd like to call the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. The first item is roll call, please.
Mrs. Root,
Here.
Mrs. Hanchett,
Here.
Mr. Barnes,
Present.
Mr. Curran,
Here.
Mr. Havey,
Here.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mr. Ricky,
Here.
Mrs. Ricketts Swales,
Here.
and Mr. Harris. 8 present.
Thank you. The next item is your approval of the April 17th minutes, and I'll entertain a motion.
Rick, you move. Curran, second.
Any further discussions? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Okay, I want to acknowledge that we did receive monthly reports from Tim Boyd, the Director of Economic Development, Craig Clark, Industrial Development Agency, Kiera Durham, Director of Planning, and Rita Sobeck Lynch, Employment and Training Program Director. They are a part of our minutes. If anyone has any questions at the end of the meeting, we can ask them at that time. And then for new business today, we are going to talk about our tourism plan, and Kiera Durham is here to present it. We all have handouts, and Kiera, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you for the next 20 minutes.
20 minutes it is. 1:33, just for the record. Whatever that turns into, you figure it out.
I'll stop you when it's time.
Thank you. So I want to be clear, what you have in front of you is not by no means a final report. This is, or plan. This is a draft for discussion between you and me, so that when we're putting together our budget in July, that we can have a better handle what we're putting in that budget that you are supportive of, so that hopefully it will be close to that when it's approved. So I'm trying to get ahead of the game here this year to explain to you some of the things that have changed that we've noted this past year or two that are an issue, and how we think that we might address some of those issues. And so the second page is the split up of the current budget. That's really just for context. If you want to look back at that at any point, it's the one with the little bubbles on blue. I wanted to remind you on the third page that of how this all goes together. So today is the brainstorming and idea generation part of this. And from this discussion, we'll go back and we'll firm up the things that have support or agreement that we need to get better numbers for. The Allegheny County budget presentation, that's really submission to the county administrator's office, treasurer's office. Whenever that is due, we will put in the new budget at that time. Somewhere around November, usually you folks approve the county budget. So at that point, we'll know what's in the budget for real as far as the county's concerned. We won't know what the state's doing because they don't even accept the grant application till December. And usually they're really quick turning it around. Usually by Christmas or so, they've already approved it and are ready to send us a check. But really in December, there's a bunch of things that happen. So that will finalize what we can actually afford to do based on the budget that the county passes and what we are granted from I Love New York. So somewhere around December, we should have basically a final version. You should all know about it. I'll get it to you as soon as we've got it. And you can hopefully sign off, or if we need to tweak something, we will. But so that's sort of the timeline. So this is an iterative process. So there's throughout the document, there on each page, there's black ink writing which indicates the current status. So on the first one, it talks about advertising radio. Currently, we are placing ads in markets like Elmira, Olean, and with the local radio station. And all those ads for a 6-month period cost about $5,600. We had some preliminary talks with the Media One radio group to discuss what it would be like to expand over to the Jamestown, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Warren County area. And that was a preliminary number that they sent us. And then we've had some very preliminary discussion about the potential to advertise on entities like Spotify, which is digital, and it's a much bigger market method. So we would hit a totally different group of people, and they can target based on the people, what the people tend to like, and so it's not so stuck with the existing local areas. The initial estimate is about $5,000 if we were going to expand into Spotify or something similar to that. The next page, and feel free to stop me if you want to talk about any of these, because I'd rather do them as I'm going along.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you're proposing to do all three of those in this new budget?
I'm putting it out there to see if you're supportive of these concepts for us to tighten up those numbers and go forward. That's the same thing throughout this whole document. I'm trying to get a feel for what you're into. Now, a few things are coming up later that are more significant price-wise. And we may have to make adjustments anyway to make those work, but I'll get to that in a few minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the page with all the bubbles you call.
Yeah.
That is our budget existing today.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
what I'm working from.
That's not a proposed budget.
Nope, that's
Gotcha.
where we are today.
Okay, thank you.
So just for reference, we received approximately $50,000 from I Love New York. We matched it with approximately $50,000, and there was $96,500 in the non-matching line for this year. I'd actually requested about 120-some thousand in the non-match, which had been similar the previous few years. That did not make it through the budget process last year, so we took a 20% approximately cut in the non-match. So we've been working at a deficit from what I had originally predicted a year ago at this time.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to take all that into account here. Distribution. So currently, and if you'd like to see, the next page has a map for 2024 of where we are doing distribution. This is like rest areas, stores, throughout these various counties. Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, Steuben County, over to Elmira, the Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse markets, and basically west of State College in Pennsylvania. We have hundreds and hundreds of locations that our guide is being put into in all those areas. The cost of that distributor network is about $14,000. If you look at the next page, the next map after the 2024, there's a 2025. In an ideal scenario, I would think that we should be doing distribution approximately out to about 180 miles, somewhere between that 120 and 180 miles. That's the buffer rings you see there, 60 miles, 120, 180. If you look at that, that would get us out to the Thousand Islands, Utica area, Binghamton area. Currently, we're not in those areas, and we're not in the Ithaca market either. So that's in New York State. We take care of the western part of Pennsylvania, but we're not in the northeastern part. We're not in the southeastern, and we're not in the Philadelphia markets. Those would be all targets we might want to consider. So we're putting together some estimates on what that would take. We also identify, and we're not including it right now, but maybe in a year or two, if we think it's important to do a wider distribution network, out to Cleveland is within that same radius, the Eastern Ohio market. And we're showing nothing currently in Ontario. And that's a giant market. If we could get anything out there, there's millions and millions and millions of people in that market. And there are distributors that would work with us, but currently we don't have the funds or the materials to do that.
Kara, I have a question. Regionally, are they still doing the Cleveland show?
Yes, that comes
Are we-
under a different category, but yes.
No, I'm just thinking about where you want to distribute. If we're going to that show, it might be wise to have some
Right.
distribution out there.
Yeah.
That was my point of
Yeah,
that, so.
absolutely. So these are basically racks at all the locations. You pull into a rest area, there's a rack there. You buy that rack space for 6 months or a year, whatever it is. We usually do the whole year, and typically they range anywhere from $1,400 to $5,000 to have that distribution network covered for you per area. The thing that isn't maybe so obvious is that if you choose to do this, expand your area, it's not just paying the distributors. We also have to print enough guides to cover all these areas. So real off the cuff, it was probably at least 30,000 extra guides I would need to print to get there. So there's a side cost that shows up later, which you'll see. There's a breakdown after the maps that addresses the question that Ms. Hanchett noted. Where are we sending guides at shows? And this does not include our in-county shows, the Main Street Fest, the Fair, the Garlic Fest, Picnic, OFA Picnic, local government conference, things like that we go to. That's not on here. What these are is we have an agreement with NISTIA, the New York Tourism Industry, and they take our guides to all those bullets there. Anderson Brochure Distribution Service for 2024, they took are taking our guide to all those bullets. Genesee River Wilds helps us and also carries our guides to some shows. And then the Chautauqua Allegheny region takes to those bullets under that section. So that's 2024. If you flip to the next page, for not that much more, Anderson would take our guide to all those additional locations, so we don't have to actually put staff on the road to go to those. We send them up so many boxes of guides. They take them to all those shows for us. So that was referenced just before the maps. The additional amount for Anderson to carry those is only $2,555. So to me, that's like super bargain. But we have to make that agreement in the fall of this year for them to do it next year. So kind of need to know if you're behind these things.
I think that is a good way to save and get it out many places. I still think going to the shows,
Right.
you push yours a little bit more.
Sure do.
So, teaming up with other people that have booths at shows, they need the extra help sometimes, and that has always been very helpful in the past too. That way you're down there, and when you have that face-to-face, it's more effective, but I know resources and
So
plays an issue.
the Chautauqua Allegheny region, we share those duties.
Yep.
So our staff goes to some of those shows and participates for the 3 counties. And it's exactly what Gretchen's saying, where you end up, if you're working it, you're pushing all the Allegheny County stuff. So
At different points in the past, we'd even go down to the Harrisburg Sports Show and share booths with the Fishing Association. I know there's a technical term for them, and that was very helpful too. So those types of things help, but
Those,
I
and
understand
those are
resources.
additional opportunities that we didn't identify at this time. Partially because they require travel money and, overtime and
Yeah.
all that stuff factors into that. Mr. Healy?
Yes. Do we have a QR code associated with any of our
Yes,
branding?
Absolutely.
So that it can that can be downloaded by anybody, any place, anytime.
yep.
All right.
We use it all the time in almost all of our advertising, both digital and paper, to try to drive people to the Western Eric Wilds website.
We don't do anything by television, though. Or-
We actually are currently through Hearst Media. We're being promoted on YouTube and being plugged into various channel listings through their services. So when you randomly see an ad or whatever, you might see a Western Eric Wilds site ad, but probably not if you're in the county because we're
Right.
geo
Well, that's required
fencing that area
for funding,
Buffalo,
right?
Rochester, Syracuse, that kind of thing.
Has to be outside the county anyways. How about fringe sports networks or channels?
I don't have the channels in mind, but there was like 40 different channels
Outdoor,
that they
hunting, fishing.
target for us.
Thank you.
So collateral is the next page. Collateral is a lovely term that's confusing to most. It includes the paper products that we create. So it's the brochures, it's the guide, typically. So the current guide, which is about 56 pages long and is quite nice, we're looking at doing a redesign right now of that due to a number of factors. Things have already changed. Things have gone out of business. The events are on different dates, all that good fun. And doing an upgrade to that. And what we're realizing is we pretty much need to at least do an edit each year to make it still relevant and not get stale. Maybe not a full redo each time, but at least an edit. The cost of those guides is about currently $1.50 per guide. So to go back to our distribution question, if I need 30,000 guides, I'm looking at $45,000 just for printing at that rate. Of the additional guides, not the ones I'm already getting, which is between 30 and 50,000 copies. So, this stuff adds up. I'm just trying to make that clear that when we do more guides, it's approximately $1.50 currently. Hopefully the pricing goes down. The paper was crazy priced a year or two ago, and it seems like it's starting to go down a little bit.
So, Kier, you said it was 46 pages?
56 right now.
56 pages? Have you, any talk about, the cost in that is the paper, and then the shipping and the distribution. Have you thought about perhaps making it less, take some of that detailed information out of it and shoot them,
Wait.
push them to the website for
Wait.
the information that changes frequently?
Yes. We tried an 8-page version last year, which unfortunately did not really do what we hoped it would. It was too short.
Right,
And-
somewhere in between.
And the 36 page was okay, but it didn't have the feel that we were looking for, trying to move it toward the more modern magazine style. And people still call us if we don't put their business listing in the document somewhere. They get upset. And some of them get upset if I just don't highlight them too. So those are like, I don't know if you call them political issues, but they're side issues that come into that whole scheme. So we have been working both directions on that. So we're looking at how the next variation will be to take that into account.
Okay.
The other thing that isn't so obvious is trucking, and Deb, you just sort of mentioned that, but the logistics fees are ridiculous. If you because we don't have, and most of our warehouses do not have a truck dock. They need a lift, and then it needs two drivers, a driver and a helper, to offload that stuff. And so it's that all adds to the fees. So I just throw that out there. So that $75,000 you see there spending increase is really just a super rough idea if we had to print all that additional materials. Okay, we will tighten that up in the coming months, but that's sort of the worst case scenario I'm seeing right now, is that it might cost us that much more. The next page is the print marketing continued. We already sort of talked about the travel guide. We're redoing the existing scenic drives, hunting and fishing and history brochures this year. We'd like to develop a dining guide and a camping guide. The camping guide would be a hit because the only guide we have specific to that is the New York State one, which is only state parks, and we don't have one of those, so it doesn't show us at all. So we think that I think we have 14 campgrounds would be benefited by having a separate brochure for that. Direct mail, we're getting more leads right now due to our Fresh Air Adventures campaign. And we're also getting leads through our Guest Quest that we haven't finished figuring out exactly how to deal with them, but I just wanted to give you a feel. They're sending us approximately 100 leads a week. And so we run with them for about 6 months a year. So that's about 2,400 leads that we're getting. Those are people who've expressed some sort of interest in coming here. So the next one says additional services contractual. The first one that says new marketing service is something we've been very lucky the last number of years is to have in-house staff that can do graphic design, write copy, do the creative for us. It's not confirmed, but it's probable that we will not have that staff capability in-house later this year. So I've done some outreach to some firms that do creative and do the graphic design, place the ads, and provide those other services that currently are being taken care of in-house. The range is somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 is what I'm getting. They would take care of all that for us. We would tell them where we want things done. We would not have to be doing all that creative in-house. We would not have to be babysitting the ad firms or any of that stuff. So that would be a benefit to the office. I don't think that we could replace a staff with a staff person for that same number. I don't think we would probably find someone who wanted to work for the county for that range. It would probably cost more. So one of these outside firms is probably a good option. But currently, that dollar amount is sitting in the .1s instead of in this account.
Right.
It's sitting in the planning budget, not in the tourism budget. So if it shows over here, that's why.
Okay.
There's a few additional ideas that have come out that we've seen other counties embracing. The new event add-on to the website and the new booking platform. So the booking platform is up first. The current estimate from this company, Ripe, is for about $12,000. And what that would allow is if you flip to the next page where it says Folsom, which is somewhat ironic because that's where the prison is that Johnny Cash used to sing about. What it does is on our Western New York Wild site, it would have a booking setup just sort of similar to Expedia, but it would be ours. And it would allow our hotels, motels, and campgrounds to work with this firm to either use their current booking platform or create a new one for those who don't currently have that. And we would, because they would be booking through our site, we would be capturing information, so we would actually know how many people are booking through us. We're not collecting a fee. It would just be part of that standard $12,000 a year. They also have these experiences at the bottom left, which we would have to build with the chambers of commerce and different people, but where they get an extra, sign up for the coffee tour, whatever it is going to be, and that becomes something they book into through this process also. So that seemed like a pretty good deal to me, but that would be something. And then the next page is the events platform. Our current events calendar is decent. I don't have a big problem with it, but it's not as pretty as a lot of others, and it doesn't provide quite as much information as maybe we could. So this platform through ITI Digital would dress up our website graphic and interactivity through their process, and that was, I think, 15-ish if we wanted to do that. So the scary number on the back. If you added everything up, all those additions, it's a large number. Now, I have told you over and over and over, this is all editable. This is kind of like from a finance, and if we wanted to do it all, this is kind of the worst case scenario of what I think it would cost. So how do you feel about all that?
I think you have a lot of good ideas going on. I like the idea about the two last, the events and booking and working with those partners. I think that's going to help when you're driving stuff off the web like that. I also like the idea of your digital, your Spotify. I like the idea of broadening it out and getting it out. And you can then have data, collect data from that also. So overall, I think you've got some really great ideas going on here.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I think they're great ideas. I think you've come a long way with this. We've said this before, this is old news, but tourism is the first date for economic development. And I think spending more money on tourism is well advised. And thanks for putting this together.
Thank you.
So if I look at this, and if we get what we had last year of $50,000 from the I Love New York, we're going to match it with 50, right? So we would have 100,000, and then
Just to be clear, this big blue bubble is additional stuff on top of what we're spending already.
Oh, this 178,000 is on top of what we're already spending. Oh, I thought that was your total.
That was the super conservative.
Well, this is going to be some interesting
That's-
discussions coming up,
that-
isn't it?
That's why I wanted to get you on the same page so that we're, some of these
Well, I
things.
think it's a good place to start. It's a good place to start and have the discussions about where you're going to get your most return on your investment. So, and I thank you for bringing it early enough to us. Does anyone else have any comments because we're kind of running out of time?
I just, this is really nicely done, and I appreciate it as well. I think it looks really good, and I think there's lots to be thought about and talked about in here. I know I travel. I know I don't use print anymore at all, so that's just one of my thoughts.
That was one of the things that was surprising at the Nistia conference is apparently print's coming back in vogue out there. So many people are grabbing it still, but that's
know.
what they were saying.
When I was in Alaska, there were mounds of those brochures, and no one was taking them. That's just my thought. And some of the other things in here are so good that,
Yeah.
When I was in Charleston, they couldn't keep the print stuff in the. We were trying to get extra, and they couldn't keep them on the shelf. So that was in the cellar, though.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
I think a lot of these like good ideas here, Kieran. I think some of them are probably more doable in the near term than others, and some of them will, the data that we gather from some of it also would be beneficial to us in applying for our other grant funding, not only in your department, but for all our towns and villages and throughout the county government apparatus. So I thank you.
Okay, Dwight?
Yeah, does any of this fit into the 7.5 million that we set aside?
No. No,
None?
you're using that 7.5 million that you set aside for infrastructure projects and to be the match on a lot of grant applications that you're going after. There really isn't money available in that to be spent on this, in my opinion.
So, but I guess, is some of this, could we not go after some CFA grants for advertising? I know Cat County got quite a bit of money for one, to put together a plan, but then to implement that plan. So maybe not this year, but down the road, we could put together a,
They
Go
did
after
just
those
release the CFAs
yeah,
this week. And in the conversation with Delta yesterday, we're just confirming exactly how they're looking at that regional marketing money, whether we have to include multiple counties or how that works exactly. But
yeah. So it's good, all good to look into. Yes,
I'm sorry. Off the topic just a little bit, but while we got you in the spotlight, where do you see the asset, the tourism trailer being used this summer?
don't really have a lot of plan. They're definitely in the Cuba Garlic Fest. It fits nicely for sure. We're still working on those
Okay.
events.
Thank you.
thank you, Kier, once again for putting this together, and your whole staff. Looks like you've put a lot of thought into it.
Just like to let you know, I will not be at the June meeting. So that was part of the reason I wanted to get it here in May. If you have specific thoughts and comments, it would be awesome if you could email them to me. I can collect them, and then I can reshare the results of that. Because I kind of need to know for July what's definitely out, what's sort of interesting, and what's definitely interesting.
Okay, okay, so
Thank
we
you.
have some homework to do for Kier. So, all right, thank you. So next up, under action items, we have authorization to reprint the tourist guide. So do we have to take action on this? There's no cost at this time?
Correct. You're going to need.
Oh, we're going to go out
Kier's-
for proposals.
That's Kier's MOE that you need to vote in favor of so that he can put out an RFP on it.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to go out for RFPs for this purpose.
Rick, you move.
Helio second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next up, we have requesting a resolution and authorization to apply for a community project funding application, a CFA highway account for the Canyadia Historic Bridge Project, Phase A. You're going to speak to this, Carissa?
Oh, I'm just going to say the next few MOEs, they're all mine. They're all a
Okay.
result of our work with Delta Development. We've applied for a lot of grants, and we just need to make sure we've gone back and we've documented that these are grants you wanted us to apply for. I know we've all talked about them, but we haven't had anything official in the minutes on
Okay.
them. So the first one is this is County Road 46 in Canyadia. It's the historic bridge that's closed down, and we were asking for funding to do two things. One, on the historic bridge, turn it into kind of a walking bridge, tourism type bridge. And then two, if available, we would really like to put a new bridge there if we could secure enough funding for it. But this one focused on the historic portion.
I'll entertain a motion.
Hanchett will move.
Ricketts Swales will second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried.
So the next one was a resolution to apply for funding for the Gateway Center, which we know is in the Crossroads area.
Healy will move it.
Havey will second.
Any further discussions? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion's carried.
The next one is just an authorization for us to go out for an RFP on the comprehensive sewer study. We do have two separate grant funds that are going towards the cost of that.
Ricky will move.
Second?
Healy will second.
Okay, any further discussions on this? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried.
So on the next one, just so you know, you'll see a lot of X's on the account numbers. Terry is still working on setting up the accounts and what numbers we'll want these to go in. Hopefully, we'll have that fixed on these by the time they get to Ways and Means to vote on. But for these purposes, we just want this committee to move this referral forward, to accept and appropriate the grant funding that we've received.
And this is the IIJA funding through Southern Tier West.
Correct. This
That
is
we've
for the
been-
sewer study.
Yep. I'll entertain a motion.
Hanchett will move.
Do we have a second?
Ricky Swales.
Any discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried.
And the next one would be for the grant funding for the fairgrounds. This is through the transportation portion of HUD, which we've abbreviated as THUD.
Healy will move it.
Do we have a second?
Hanchett will second.
Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And the motion's carried.
So just in general, we are applying for a lot of grants. We've been very aggressive and will continue to be. In working through these, there will be matches that we'll have to figure out. There we go. We do have some fund balance available to go towards the matches. The other things we'll want to worry about are how much of this grant funding will be available to us in advances versus us paying it all up front and then claiming later, because that does affect our cash flow. We don't want to get too aggressive with our grants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Done.
So the last item we have, oh, Terry, yes.
Can I make a comment
Yep.
on the fair one? We did learn yesterday that the fair grant does not require a grant match.
Oh,
So
good.
that MOE has the match listed, that can be actually crossed out, so you might want to approve that without that match. Because we don't have to have a match, but if the board wants to give the fair additional money, then you need to decide that as well. But right now, that grant does not require a match at all. It's a straight up 100%, no match on the county's part.
So you're
that-
saying right now the local share is 141,000?
That's really a zero.
That's a zero.
Yeah.
Do we need to redo that?
I think you could just fix it before it gets to Ways and
Ways and
Means, because we
Means.
need to add the
Okay.
account numbers anyways.
Okay, all right, so
So
we're
I'll
good.
do that when I do the account numbers, I'll delete it, but I think it's fair for you to know that we're gonna take that off.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next up, we have an appointment to the Allegheny County Land Bank Corporation Board of Directors. And this is Robert Saltzer as a member of the Allegheny County Land Bank Corporation for the remainder of a two-year term commencing immediately and expiring September 30th, 2025, subject to the confirmation of the Board of Legislators. And I'll entertain a motion.
Havey will move that.
Do we have a second?
Curran moves.
Do we have any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything today for old business? Do we have anything for the good of the order today?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions, if I might, on one of the reports.
Okay,
Is that okay?
sure.
Actually, I'm not sure if this directly came off Tim Boyd's report, but Tim would be the guy who could answer this for me.
This is,
A couple of questions. First one, I understand that there was some sort of organizational meeting recently to help stand up the Economic Development Department.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct. The committee chair and vice chair were there in addition to some other invited guests from the IDA and our staff and Ashley, who is our new Economic Development Director, and we also included the representatives from the chambers.
Okay,
And
that's
the land,
excellent.
and Lane
And Land
Bank and Accord were there. So this was discussed at our last meeting, that we were going to put together a small committee to look at the new organization. It was going to consist of 2 people from the IDA, 2 people from the county, 2 people from this committee, and the Land Bank, Accord,
Chambers.
and the chambers. And we threw up some organizations, and we looked at different organizations, and they've come up with some things that they're studying and going to come back to us in June with what they've decided, some recommendations.
Okay. Were there minutes taken, and will they be available to the committee?
I do not believe we took minutes, but we can,
It's not a formal committee by any means. I think these are just people that would have some ideas of how you could draw together some of the recommendations in that Camoin report and move forward on. I don't think they have any decision-making power or anything of the like. I think they were just trying to see what was feasible to come back to this committee with some ideas. But ultimately, however, this committee and this board wants to move forward in economic development is your decision, not this group. It's just kind of like an internal working group on what's feasible and what's not feasible with the staff we have today.
Okay, so the decisions, well, not decisions, but the thoughts and desires of this group will come back here then, so we don't need
Correct.
to worry about that right now.
correct, that was really kind of a brainstorming session of what do we think it would look like, how would it be shaped, and that's part of the discussion, the long-term discussion for next month's meeting on what the potential EDA, EDO, economic development organization would look like.
And how many development corps there are, how many, there's organizations that I never knew existed until we had this discussion. And Ashley did take a lot of notes and minutes, and she's putting together those, and they will be presented at the next committee meeting to look at as suggestions. There's, for us to make that determination of where we want to go.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, please. I just wanted to report that plans are well underway for the second annual Seneca Candidatia Field Day. We've been meeting with the nation, and we had over 600 in attendance last year, and we expect it to be bigger and better this year, and held at the Candidatia Town Park on June 22nd. But it's going to be another neat adventure with the Seneca Nation and on the land they used to own.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Mr. Healy?
Yes. I want to thank Craig Clark and the IDA board for allowing me to join them last Friday at Jones Memorial Hospital for their meeting there, and also Mr. Helms, the CEO of the hospital, for his hospitality and the tours. And one of the things that Mr. Helms kept stressing was that that they were part of the three-legged stool for economic development, which was, if I remember right, Mr. Clark, and I'm sure you can speak to that, was education, healthcare, and jobs. Is that correct?
That's correct. He kept highlighting, as we know, there's a housing.
Craig, would you go up to the microphone? Turn it on.
Actually pushed the button.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you
Mike
go.
did a good job of summary. The one other thing they kept mentioning was that there's a housing issue in the county, and we know that from any medium to large scale employer that just can't find appropriate housing. But yeah, it was a really good tour, and he did a great job of summarizing how Jones is really doing a great job of expanding their services throughout the area.
Thanks again.
Is there anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Rick, you move.
Second? Who?
Havey.
Havey? Okay, all in favor for adjournment? Please say aye.
Aye.